All right, everybody, welcome back to the First Team Fantasy Podcast. In this episode, we will be recapping all of the Sunday morning games from this Week 12 slate to kick it off with an NFC South, a pretty big game, actually. The Saints at the Falcons, that the Falcons were able to win 24-15. And we said, the Saints would want to make this game ugly, and they were somewhat able to do so. Sadly, the Saints are very, very injury riddled right now. Derek Carr did not have a good fantasy week. He was 24 of 38, 304 yards, which is solid, but did not throw a touchdown. Threw that terrible interception in the red zone, very Derek Carr-esque. 2 carries for 7 yards, 11.86 fantasy points. Again, not a good week for Derek Carr, but a week we were not looking to start him anyways.
No.
Alvin Kamara. Go ahead.
I mean, so next week obviously is a very big bye week for, a lot of quarterbacks. Like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen especially.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Carr was kind of a streaming option, but with the injuries they have at tight end at this point, even going up against the Detroit secondary that's been very generous against the pass, what do you think about Derek Carr next week?
I don't like it. And I mean, before I'll skip the running backs for now. Chris Olave was having a monster game. 7 catches, 114 yards, 9 targets, 18.4 fantasy points. Only played 47% of the game because he left with a concussion. Chris Olave might not be available next week. Rashid Shaheed only played 26% of snaps, saw 5 targets, caught 2 of them for 9 yards, 2.9 before he left with a thigh injury that he didn't return with. Again, he might not play next week. We could have a wide receiver room for the Saints where A.T. Perry is the number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
So his weapons are just so dwindled. No Michael Thomas, Chris Olave up in the air, Rashid Shaheed up in the air.
Sounds like a big Alvin Kamara game.
Absolutely. But for Derek Carr, I don't think so. And I mean, to finish out the receivers, and so you have Olave that misses half the game. Rashid Shaheed played a fourth of the game. A.T. Perry was out there 74% of snaps, saw 2 targets, caught one of them for 7 yards, 1.7. I know with the Michael Thomas injury, we'd kind of talked about him. Can he step into a somewhat significant role? I don't believe so. I don't think he's ready to take that step forward. He had the chance in this game, and Lynn Bowden was getting more work than him. So it's rough.
Former Kentucky quarterback, Lynn Bowden.
Yeah. Former Las Vegas Raider, Lynn Bowden.
No, former Oakland Raider.
And Taysom Hill. I mean, for a tight end, it wasn't a terrible week.
Without the fumble, it would have been better.
Yes. He had 2 catches for 55 yards on 2 targets and 7 carries for 26 yards. Also had that fumble. Finished 8.1 fantasy points. Played 35% of snaps. Again, if you started him at the tight end position, that's not a terrible week. But again, without the fumble, he would finish double digits. And, with the fumble, he was outscored by the other tight end, who probably benefits the most from all of these injuries, is Juwan Johnson. He saw 7 targets, caught 4 of them, 45 yards, 8.5 fantasy points. He's someone that we can take a look at for next week at the tight end position. We'll talk about it more as we get into previews for next week, but if Olave and Rashid Shaheed miss, Juwan Johnson is someone that I like. Because, I mean,
Taysom Hill, it's going to be ugly.
Yeah, those two and Kamara. And, I mean, Kamara had another very good week. 15 carries, 69 yards, 5 targets, caught 4 of them, 50 yards, 15.9. It's Alvin Kamara. We know what to expect from him. He has been very consistent this season, and he was consistent again. And lastly, for the Saints, when you don't score a touchdown and you kick 5 field goals, Blake Groupie, 18 fantasy points.
Yep.
Very good week for him.
We did definitely talk about him, and
He
I mean,
came through.
we gotta take our little victories when we can get them in this season of wild, ridiculous finishes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then to go to the Falcons side of the ball, I mean, our main guys did they did good this week. Desmond Ritter, we know what we're going to get from him. The Saints do have a solid defense. He was 13 of 21, only threw 168 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, 7 carries, 30 yards, 11.7 fantasy points. Not someone we're looking at ever fantasy wise. Bijan finally got some work, and look what happens when you give him the ball. 16 carries, 91 yards, a touchdown. 6 targets, caught 3 of them, 32 yards, another touchdown. 27.3 fantasy points, played 63% of snaps. That's what we hope to see from Bijan week in and week out. Arthur Smith, you drafted him extremely high. Use him. He is very talented. I don't. There's nothing else to say. It's
And they won.
and they won the game exactly. And then the other running backs, Algier played 29% of snaps, 10 carries, 64 yards. Cordell Patterson played 26% of snaps, 8 carries, 43 yards. I think the moral of the story, how the Falcons won this game, was running the ball very successfully. No matter who was running the ball, they ran it very efficiently. Our only receiver we're looking at on the Falcons, Drake London, saw 7 targets, caught 5 of them, 91 yards, 14.1. Honestly, did a bit better than I thought he would do this week, just because of the matchup.
Same.
Yeah, he got it done.
He is
14.1 is
talented
solid.
enough, in my opinion. I'm at the point where I'm at least flexing him every week.
Yeah.
Because Ritter's going to clearly throw the ball to him. Ritter knows that he's the most talented receiver out there. So he will get the targets.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, he's a very good football player. So
Yeah.
he's one of the guys that if he continues to get the target volume, the talent can get it done.
No, absolutely. It's the only scary thing is when Desmond Ritter completes 13 passes in a game.
Oh, yeah.
5 of them go to Drake London. So you're like, he almost has that's like a 40% target share. It's.
Yeah, I'm not looking at like we said, the size of the pie is what really matters.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the slice when it's so small. But, when Drake, you at least like the targets that he's getting.
No, for
regardless.
sure. He's the only.
I'm more worried about like Pitts and Smith.
And, and you should be, because Kyle Pitts played 50% of snaps, saw 2 targets, caught both of them for 22 yards, gave you 4.2. Jonnu Smith played 35% of snaps, did not get a single target, gave you a goose egg. These are just guys we cannot. If it's in the receiving or tight end room for the Falcons and they're not named Drake London, we just cannot trust them at all. By any means.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But that's all I had for that one.
All right, well, on to the next stinker of a game. We had the Panthers going into Tennessee. Panthers lost 17-10, and Frank Reich got fired again. I don't really necessarily understand what he was expected to do with a roster like that, but
no,
at least he's getting paid. They got
for
to
the
pay him out for
future.
that contract.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So good for him.
Yeah.
Pretty horrible game. Yeah, Bryce Young, 18 for 31, 194 yards, 3 rushing attempts for 23 yards, and also lost a fumble, giving him 8.1 fantasy points. Surprisingly enough, he was the higher scoring quarterback in this game. The best player apparently on the Carolina Panthers, Chuba Hubbard, 14 rush attempts, 45 yards, also had a touchdown on the ground, caught 5 passes on 5 targets for 47 yards, giving him 20.2 fantasy points. I was pretty worried with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard kind of getting that 50-50 split in a sense. Well, this week it went to 64% to Chuba Hubbard, 36% to Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders did get 15 carries, only for 28 yards. Did not catch his lone target, so he got 2.8 fantasy points. It is clear who the more effective running back is in Carolina, and I think Chuba Hubbard is startable moving forward.
Yeah.
Looking like Miles Sanders is a very expensive handcuff. For the receivers, it was a very disappointing game. Jonathan Mingo was the lead receiver. Caught 4 of his 6 targets for 60 yards, giving him 10 points. DJ Chark got 3 of his 4 targets for 34 yards, giving him 6.4 points. And Adam Thielen, in his worst game since week 1, 1 catch on 3 targets for 2 yards. 1.2 points for Thielen. Thielen's out there 89% of the snaps. Mingo's out there 92. I mean,
It's just
what
bad.
do you do?
Yeah.
We are seeing Mingo out there for, it's been since week 8, 99%, 96, 98, 95, 92.
He should have had
He
5
has
catches. The clip I sent you, there's no way. What the? What?
I have never. That was like the opposite of awareness. That I don't even understand what that was.
He looked like
That was
the dude on the kickoff when you're trying to like
no.
down it.
You remember what Gunnar Olszewski? Yeah, like remember what Gunnar
Yes.
Olszewski did? It's like they switched bodies.
Mm-hmm.
They like what one of them did what the other one was supposed to do. What the hell was that? He jumped out of bounds to catch the ball. Like what? He completely flipped his body position to catch that ball out of bounds. That was one of the most ridiculous plays I've ever seen, and he was still the lead receiver in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know moving forward. I'd like to still be able to trust Thielen. This is 2 weeks in a row that we have seen Mingo outsnap Thielen.
Mm-hmm.
So is this something you're worried about?
No, I mean, if we are going to trust someone in the Panthers receiving room, it's got to be Thielen. I think it's more so Thielen's up there in age. You can't expect him to play, 90% of snaps every game. This was a terrible week from him along,
that's kind of maybe the thought. They just fired their head coach. It's not like they're going to get rid of their rookie wide receiver or their rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
So is this maybe going to be a thing moving forward that they kind of try to get established, Mingo and Bryce Young? That's what I'm kind of concerned about with the Adam Thielen thing. Not necessarily saying that I trust Jonathan Mingo in a sense, especially in the area we're moving towards, the playoffs. It's like, I don't know that, he's someone I'm putting out there, but it does concern me for
I think it drops Thielen a little bit, but
status of Adam Thielen.
I don't know
He's
if I
kind of been a
trust Mingo.
surefire wide receiver 1 for a large portion of this year. Now it's like he's relegated to like a risky flex option.
Yeah, it depends how your receiver room looks. I mean, Thielen's been so consistent. He had the terrible week. If I'm playing 3 receiver, I still feel comfortable starting him until he gives me another week like this. But he's just been so good all season. I feel like it's hard to, you know what I mean, relegate him to the bench because he has a bad week.
That is true, but we are getting towards a point in the season where things start trend. You see a player trending in a certain direction, they're not going to the playoffs by any means. They just hit the reset button.
Yeah. Something we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so just taking a look at it. He got 11 targets against Dallas, 10 against Chicago. My biggest concern is just that this week he gets 3 targets, they fire their head coach, the direction moving forward. and the uncertainty, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's
But
valid.
yeah, not to stay on that topic too long, but it is something that's important because he has been a vital part for a lot of people's fantasy lineups for a large part of this year.
Yeah.
I mean, DJ Chark, another guy I'm not really trusting. I mean, not any of the tight ends either, really.
No.
They didn't really see anything out of any of them. I didn't even write anything for them because it was that poor of a performance.
Yeah.
And then on to the Titans, where it was pretty much all Derrick Henry, honestly. We kind of figured it would be that way. Carolina has been what Houston was last year, and you want to start your running backs against the Panthers. Derrick Henry, 18 attempts, 76 yards, 2 touchdowns. Caught one of his 2 passes for 0 yards, but he got 20.6 points.
Yeah.
I mean, we did say absolutely start Derrick Henry this week. He did play 64% of the snaps. Tyjae Spears did get hurt in this one. Was out for a little bit, but did come back. But he only played 40% of the snaps, which obviously that not equaling out to 100 shows there are plays where both of them are on the field.
Yeah.
Tyjae Spears had 2 attempts for 6 yards, caught one of his passes for a single yard. Had 3 targets though, but 1.7 points. Like I said, was knocked out for a decent portion of the game. D-Hop caught 3 of his 5 passes for 49 yards, giving him 7.9. And Chigakonkwo, 4 of 5, 45, 8.5 points. Nick Westbrook-Akine, 4 of his 5 targets for 41, 8.1 points. Chris Moore caught 3 of his 4 targets for 41 yards, giving him 7.1. I mean,
Snooze fest.
it's D-Hop and it's D-Hop in a good matchup.
I think he's
really
a risk. Like, he's a flex option at this point.
No, yeah, I mean, that's why I said D-Hop in a good matchup.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. It's like the same. It has to be a good matchup, and that's the scary part though for Adam. Titans pass defense is not good.
Mm-hmm.
This was a good matchup, and that offensive line is just so bad. I mean, I saw a video. They are getting to him by the time he's on his plant foot. Like,
yeah.
And
they
he's
gave
tiny.
up a lot to get him.
Yeah, they did. It's the problem with drafting a quarterback before you develop an offensive line.
Yeah.
Can't do anything. But yeah, so it was really a disgusting game.
Yeah. And I mean, to get us to a bit, more exciting of a game, the Bucs went to Indianapolis, took on the Colts. The Colts were able to win 27-20. We had some very solid fantasy outings from some of the guys we looked to start. Baker Mayfield, obviously we did not look to start this week. He was 20 for 30, 199 yards, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I know, that'd be crazy. He just 2 trick plays. Baker caught them both. No, 2
out there.
2 touchdowns and interception, 3 carries, 14 yards, 14.36 fantasy points. A very week for Baker Mayfield. Rachaad White was kind of the opposite of what we expect from him. He was very efficient on the ground. He had 15 carries for 100 yards even, but he only saw 2 targets. Caught both of them for 10 yards, 13 fantasy points. A very solid week. I mean, where Rachaad White was drafted, he has outperformed substantially.
And I mean, honestly, we said he's finishing around 20 opportunities every week.
And there's 17.
This week, he didn't need him because he was extremely efficient on, we haven't seen that this year, but...
No.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the receiver room is staying exactly how we expected it. Mike Evans is the number 1 receiver by far. He saw 9 targets, caught 6 of them, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns, 25 points even. Have a day, Mike Evans. That is huge. I'm not going to say a week winning performance, but definitely a performance
He
that puts you in a
definitely
good
helped.
spot. Yeah. Chris Godwin, yet again, his fourth consecutive game below 10 fantasy points. He saw 7 targets, but he only caught 3 of them for 45 yards. Finished 7.5 fantasy points. We're getting to the point. I don't think we can start Chris Godwin right now. You just can't.
It's unfortunate because there was a point in the season where it was like, oh, both of them are able to get home, but it's disappointing, truly.
It is, because I mean, you have Cade Otton, who only saw 4 targets compared to Godwin 7, but caught all 4 of them for the same amount of yards as Godwin, 45, 8.5 fantasy points. Cade Otton is a very weird tight end because I feel like every time we get a little high on him and we're like, he's a guy you could possibly start, he duds us. But he's just out there the entire game, every
Honestly,
single game.
yeah, I just feel like there's more consistent options.
There are. There are.
He's a good option, but not a consistent one.
No. But he had a decent week for a tight end. And the other side of the ball, Gardner Minshew threw the ball 41 times, completed 24 of them, 251 yards, no touchdowns, threw 1 interception, carried it 3 times for 6 yards with a rushing touchdown, 15.64. This was the story of Jonathan Taylor yet again. 15 carries, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns, 21.1 fantasy points. Now he is injured. And it is not certain if he is going to miss time. If he does miss time, Zach Moss goes right back to a must-start running back. But that's something we'll have to monitor and talk about going forward in the week. Mainly, Friday when we do the injury report. Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor played 58% of snaps, so Zach Moss actually got a decent run in this one. He played 41% of snaps, only carried it 8 times, but for 55 yards, saw 3 targets out the backfield, caught 2 of them for 15 yards, 9 fantasy points. It's gotten to the point when Jonathan Taylor plays, Zach Moss isn't exactly viable, but again, if he does miss time, Zach Moss is going to be an absolute must start.
Yes.
And then our 2 receivers that we look at, again, there were no touchdowns thrown in this game by the Colts, but both of our receivers, Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, both had 13 targets in this game apiece. That's pretty incredible. Michael Pittman caught 10 of them for 107 yards. 20.7 fantasy points without a touchdown is monstrous. That is unbelievable. Josh Downs was only able to catch 5 of his for 43 yards, 9.3 fantasy points. I hoped for a little more for Josh Downs, but getting 13 targets is a very good sign to where, he only caught 5 of them this week, but you go into next week, especially if they don't have Jonathan Taylor, I still like Josh Downs as like a flex option. Getting 13 targets and starting in your flex spot, I mean, you can't complain too much about that.
No, I agree.
But that was it for this one.
Well, this next game pains me to talk about.
You got done kind of dirty in the morning games, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, this one was literally the 2 worst offenses in the league going head to head and showing why they are the 2 worst offenses in the league. Neither one of these teams were the Patriots were actually averaging 14.1 points per game. They lost to the New York Giants 10-7. I don't know if I said it on here, but I said one of these teams is going to win this game 10-7 or 7-3.
Why did the Giants want to win? This is one of the games where neither of these teams should have wanted to win, but I guess someone has to.
Well, yeah, Chad Ryland was an accidental hero by missing that kick. That was, yeah. So, yeah, like I said, this was an awful game. Mac Jones actually got pulled out of the game before the last drive.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to, in his time on the field, go 12 for 21, 89 yards, and throw 2 interceptions. He played 51% of the snaps, 1.9 fantasy points. Have a day, Mac Jones. Bailey Zappi came in and relieved him, 9 for 14 for 54 yards, and 1 interception. 1.2 fantasy points. Have a day, Bailey Zappi.
They're terrible.
Yeah, it's very bad. I don't even think Cam Newton was this bad.
No.
And that man could at least run. Mondre did have a decent day. 21 for 98. 4.7 yards a carry. We will take that from Andre. Also scored a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And caught 5 of his 5 passes for 9 yards.
That's 5.9 fantasy points right there, though. Screw it.
Still giving him 21.9 fantasy points. Or 21.7, I apologize.
We like that.
So, yes, we do. Quite a bit. Honestly, there's not too much more to talk about. Zeke was 9 for 46. Caught 2 of his 2 passes for 6 yards, 7.5. Demario Douglas, the only other guy we like, caught 6 of his 9 targets for 49 yards, 10.9 points. Yeah.
He got a concussion in this game. Demario Douglas, he left with a head injury and he's entering the concussion. So he might miss this coming week against the Chargers, which is, I mean, terrible to see. Because he's, I mean...
Oh, man. Okay, well...
Just because I have to mention again... Juju over Jacoby Myers? That's all I had to say.
Yeah, Patriots were bad. Giants were also bad.
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito was 17 for 25, 191 yards, a touchdown. 5 rushing attempts for 6 yards.
Why is he
10.2 points?
Why is he better than Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, though? Why is he better than... And you can't convince me that the Giants have better weapons, necessarily.
Jalen Hyatt's probably better than every single Patriots wide receiver.
But dude, he's a rookie that like hasn't even done. You know what I mean? Like talent-wise, I agree.
No,
but like,
that's how bad the Patriots are drafting wide receivers. Apparently,
dude.
I mean, Demario Douglas is not bad. I don't think Tyquan Thornton. They're bad at utilizing any talent, and they've passed up on. Anyways,
Yeah.
So Tommy DeVito, 10.2 points. Saquon had a pretty awful day.
Yeah.
12 attempts for 46 yards. And, oh, shoot. And he caught 1 of his 3 passes for 6 yards, giving him a total of 6.2 points. If the Patriots are going to do one thing, they're going to try to take away your most effective thing on offense.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily worried about Saquon Barkley, but that's just what Bill Belichick does. They're going to make you beat them in some other way. And that came in the form of an Isaiah Hodgins 12-yard touchdown. Yeah.
His only catch. I mean,
Yes. Caught 1 pass, 12 yards, into the end zone. Touchdown, 8.2 points. The guy I mentioned, Jalen Hyatt, who, like I said, better than everybody on the Patriots wide receiver roster, caught 5 of his 6 passes for 109 yards, 15.9 points. Again, we're at the point of the year where it's hard to go out and recommend a guy like Jalen Hyatt when you pretty much kind of have your guys set in stone. I think he's worth a roster spot, And if you have someone that goes down, he's been doing well. But it's hard to say to go out and get a guy like this, especially you have guys like Calvin Ridley starting to heat up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to recommend starting a guy like that at this point in the season. But like I said, he is worth a roster spot. Is a very talented rookie, and he's showing flashes. And Tommy DeVito's not doing horrible for whatever that's worth. I mean, he's got 6 touchdowns in 3 starts.
They have the cool little celebration too. You saw that?
I didn't watch this football game.
I didn't
I
watch
care
it,
about my
dude.
mental health.
I
I
mean,
didn't want to see any
they do the
part of
little
that.
they do the little. They all get together after a touchdown, all of them.
Okay.
It's Italian. Come on, man.
Yeah.
It's
I
Tommy
just
DeVito.
I can't get behind these two teams playing football against each other. And unfortunately, I did have to cover that. It was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I have another divisional game that Steelers fans, you aren't good. The Steelers are not good. You managed to win games. I don't know how.
I know how. We know how. No, let's keep it 100. Mike Tomlin is going to go down as one of the best coaches
Yes.
in NFL history.
Yes.
He signed his soul. The rosters that he has had and not had a losing season, dude is immortal, untouchable.
He won with
And this
Big
coming
Ben.
from a Ravens fan.
Big Ben couldn't throw the football 20 yards.
I know.
Winning season. Kenny Pickett can't throw the football. He had a solid game. You know what? I'm slandering him. He had a solid game. The dude, C.J. Stroud has more touchdowns than him already. And this is like Kenny Pickett. Okay. The Steelers went into Cincinnati and won 16-10 in what was an ugly game. We
Their
did
first 400-yard game in 58 games, I believe.
Yeah. They scored 400 yards and scored 16 points. I genuinely, I don't understand. But there were a couple guys that had solid fantasy weeks. Kenny Pickett was not one of them. He had an efficient game. 24 of 33, 278 yards. That's after 106 yards against the Browns, I believe. Something like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Kenny Pickett?
Yeah.
Yeah, 106.
Yeah. Didn't throw a touchdown, no interceptions, carried it 5 times for 5 yards, 11.62. Again, we don't look at Kenny Pickett as a viable fantasy option. The running backs, we do. And Najee had a solid week. He had 15 carries for 99 yards and a touchdown, 15.9 fantasy points, did not get a catch out the backfield, but just about 16 points is what you are happy getting that from Najee. He played 54% of snaps. Jaylen Warren, honestly, I mean, when I look at his stats, they're not like terrible. He had 13 carries, 49 yards, 3 catches on 3 targets for 13 yards. That's what hurt him. You know, the three catches is okay for me. Like 3 to 5 is what I expect from Jaylen Warren, but only 13 yards.
Fumble is what hurt him.
Yeah, and the fumble hurts him.
He's a small little man.
He finished 7.2 fantasy points, would have been 9.2. So that definitely hurts him a lot.
Yeah.
You know, but either way,
when you're not even going to score 10, losing 2 definitely. It's like a gut punch.
Yeah. It's the same with Taysom Hill. It just, yeah, it hurts.
It
hurts.
Damn.
He finished 7.2, played 48% of snaps. The receivers in this one, you know, when Deontay came back, he was getting hyper targeted, and he saw 8 targets in this game, but 278 yards through the air. And then I read these receiver stats, and I'm like, dang, man. Deontay had 8 targets, 4 catches, 50 yards, 9 fantasy points. George Pickens, 5 targets, 3 catches, 58, 8.8. I still like Deontay more than George Pickens fantasy-wise, but I'm honestly worried a little bit about both of them, especially with the reemergence of Pat Freiermuth. Why did they just remember that this guy is good at football?
So they fired their offensive coordinator.
And then they said, let's throw it to Pat Freiermuth, and what do you know? He goes crazy. He had 11 targets, 9 catches, 120 yards, 21 fantasy points, 59% of snaps. Now, this kind of blew my mind.
59% of snaps is because they put what's his name on to block.
Yeah,
Darnell Washington.
yeah, Darnell Washington. But
yeah, I mean, and it makes sense. That's what they drafted him for, because they're like, Pat Freiermuth is going to be our receiving tight end, and we're going to put Washington out there to block.
you know
Makes
what?
sense.
You know what blows my mind, and we'll talk about it more. Because when I was putting together the guys for the waiver, when I looked at the tight ends, Pat Freiermuth is still rostered in 48% of leagues, and this is after he hardly did anything the first 4 weeks, missed 4 weeks after that, and then saw 1 target last week. And 48% of people were still holding this guy. Like, oh, he could. Salute to them. Because Pat Freiermuth, I mean, it's only been 1 week, but again, yeah, new OC, and it looks like he is going to be an integral part of that offense, as he should. The Bengals side of the ball. Were we disappointed with Jake Browning's performance, or did we expect something along these lines? Yeah.
I mean, I expected this.
So did I. He honestly wasn't bad. He was 19 of
But your
26.
first start is against TJ Watt. Like,
Division
what do you
game.
think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah.
Exactly.
19 of 26, 227 yards, a touchdown, a pick, 3 carries, 9 yards. Basically 13 fantasy points even. Obviously, we're not looking at him fantasy-wise, more so just how can he...
Accidentally get the ball to Jamar Chase?
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Multiple times. Like, Jamar, A1 awareness from Jamar Chase. Because it's like, I know this fool sucks, so I gotta pay attention. And every time the ball would go up in the air, he's like, his tracking is, that just shows you how good of a receiver he is and how good he is at tracking the ball, which is a huge skill for wide receivers, obviously. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase saw 6 targets, caught 4 of them for 81 yards, 12.1. I mean, it's not great, but it's not terrible. Obviously, you have to start Jamar Chase every week off talent alone, no matter the QB situation. So I can't be too upset with that week. We wondered about the other receivers, and it's going to be bad. I don't know about T. Higgins, because obviously he didn't play in this one, but Tyler Boyd, 5 targets, caught 3, 23 yards, 5.3. Trent Irwin only saw 1 target, caught it for 25 yards, 3.5. Mentioned him because he did play 72% of snaps. Drew Sample got 8.1 because he caught his only target for 11 yards, ran into the back of, was it Mike Wilcox? He trucked his own other tight end. He's like, get out the way, I'm about to score a touchdown. What are you doing? Drew Sample got a touchdown.
That was friendly fire for sure.
That
was hella funny.
The tight end.
That game was so stupid.
It was, and it's weird because the tight end I like the most here is Tanner Hudson. I genuinely don't understand why he keeps playing very minimal snaps. He only played 30% of snaps in this one, got 5 targets in the 30% of snaps, caught 4 of them, 18 yards, 5.8. That's like 4 weeks in a row this guy plays like 35 to 30% of snaps and gets like 5 targets. They throw him on the field, they're passing it to him. I don't know. You can't trust any of the Cincinnati tight ends because none of them play enough, but every time I see this guy's stats, I just think it's hilarious he gets targeted so much. And someone that I expected to get targeted a lot more, used a lot more in general, was Joe Mixon. He wasn't running it efficiently, but they only gave him the ball 8 times for 16 yards. And he had 2 catches for 44 yards on 2 targets. 8 fantasy points even.
Yeah. I don't know.
I am just curious about what their plan was for that game. I guess it was to completely rely on Jake Browning and see what he can do. And it's not like
The funny thing was they had the lead.
they did
They were up
have the lead.
7-0.
Yeah, yeah. The only other running back to even get snaps was Travion Williams, who didn't get a touch, not a pass, got nothing, and he played 19% of snaps. So Joe Mixon was out there 65% of time. The only running back to do anything, and that's what they did.
Yeah, they need to be investigated for tanking.
Did you see Zach Taylor's record without Joe Burrow?
No, what is it?
I believe they had a tie, if I'm remembering it right, but it was 5 wins, 24 losses, and a tie.
Makes sense.
Uh,
It's
yeah,
not a good football team. They have a good quarterback. I mean,
and
obviously they have
Jamar
good
Chase
receivers.
and
Yeah, they
TA.
have good
Yeah.
receivers. But like Jermaine Pratt was saying, did you see that tweet? He was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, y'all only won because it's like, dog, your defense is terrible. Joe Burrow does not play defense.
Yeah.
Like, how does the offense look good because the opposing quarterback? That doesn't like CTE in a full effect.
Yeah.
But yeah, is that all you have for that one?
Yep. Close it out.
All right, I had an actual, probably my favorite game of the week. Well, obviously aside from the Ravens beating the Chargers, but the Jags beat the Texans 24-21. It was honestly what we expected out of the Jags Texans matchup this year. It was a fun football game.
Yeah.
There was a lot of nice scoring from a lot of different guys. Unfortunately, Travis Etienne was not one of them yet again. Trevor Lawrence, on the other hand, 23 for 38, 364 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Had 2 rushing attempts for no yards, but a touchdown.
Love it.
So, 23.6 fantasy points. Like I said, I think T-Law's back. Christian Kirk back to being the lead wide receiver in this one. Not the lead fantasy wide receiver, but had, well, okay, they tied. Kirk just had 1 more target. Caught 4 of his 6 for 89 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Or 4 of his 7, I apologize. Christian Kirk had 7 targets. 12.9 points. Calvin Ridley, like we said, you gotta start him. He's trending the right direction at the right part of the season. 5 catches on 6 targets, 89 yards, and a touchdown, giving him 19 fantasy points. And as far as the splits went, Calvin Ridley was out there for 93% of the snaps, Christian Kirk 76. Zay Jones was also out there for 71% of the snaps, fairly ineffective. Caught 1 of his 3 targets for 10 yards. Unfortunately, among all the people involved, he was not really one of them. Even Dearness Johnson caught 1 of his 2 targets for 42 yards, and he was out there for 39% of the snaps. And like I said, ETN didn't really have the best day. As far as his standards have been this season, past couple weeks have been fairly rough. 20 attempts for 56 yards. Highly inefficient. Didn't get a touchdown, so didn't look too good.
Yeah.
And Trevor Lawrence got the QB sneak, as you can see from the 0 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. Kind of put 2 and 2 together there. Etienne's day was kind of saved through the air. Caught 4 of his 6 targets for 30 yards, giving him 12.6 points. Like I said, for his standards this year, it wasn't a good day. 12.6, you're expecting more out of Etienne, especially against the Houston defense. But you'll take it. Unfortunately, Luke Farrell had a lot more involvement than Evan Ingram owners would like to see. He played 42% of the snaps and caught 3 of his 5 targets for 55 yards, giving him 8.5 points. All that goes to Evan Ingram. It's a great day. Ingram did have 8 targets, caught 5 of them for 49 yards, giving him 9.9 points. But, I mean, would have had a touchdown if Trevor Lawrence didn't decide to just throw the ball 100 miles per hour into the game clock. I don't understand why he did that. There was no touch on that ball. That man just shot that shit out of a cannon. It was like, Trevor, what are you doing? That was one of the most ridiculous. I was like, oh my God, he was so open. And you just, like, calm down, dog. There's no need for that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so unfortunately, that one did not go for like a 15-yard touchdown to Evan Ingram, which would have been a lot better for anyone who started him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, that was pretty much all as far as the Jags go. Actually, McManus had a really good day. Hit 3 of his 4 field goal attempts. 14 fantasy points. Also had an extra point. Missed like a 55-yarder. Would have had like 19 points, or 20 actually, because whatever it is.
Yeah.
Had a great day. Would have had a ridiculous day. On to the Texans side of the ball, where C.J. Stroud yet again. He's entering league winner mode. 26 for 36, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Ran the ball 6 times, 47 yards and a touchdown, which we have not seen C.J. Stroud running the ball. Honestly, if you watch him play, he doesn't really like to run the ball. He'll run around until it's open rather than taking an open lane. I mean, but 6 attempts for 47 yards and a touchdown is incredible for him. 30.9 fantasy points. So we love to see that. Dameon Pierce returned in this game. And like we said, when Dameon Pierce comes back, it's going to be kind of ugly for Singletary. Not only that, they were going up against a very tough Jags run defense. They each did pretty much nothing. I mean, Singletary had a good game as far as receiving, but on the ground, they were both terrible.
Yeah.
Singletary had 6 attempts for 18 yards. Pierce had 5 attempts for 14 yards. Tank Dell also had 1 attempt for 12 yards, so as far as running backs go, I think he might be the best. But Singletary caught 6 of his 7 passes for 54 yards, which did end up giving him 13.2 points.
It's a solid week.
It is, but it's like we said, as far as the rushing goes,
terrible.
Well, Dameon Pierce being back is going to eat into that. He only played 18% of the snaps in his first game back. But like we said, this is his first game back, so he might get more muddled.
Yeah.
But Devin Singletary has been fairly involved as a receiver out of the backfield and might look for that to continue. 6 catches on 7 targets for 54 yards for a running back.
Incredible. Yeah.
Pierce caught his lone target for 4 yards, finished with 2.8 fantasy points. They spread the ball out quite a bit in this one. But yet again, the main guys still got it done. Now, I say the main guys, the main receivers. Dalton Schultz was unfortunately just one of the faces in the crowd in this one. 2 targets, caught 1 of them for 2 yards. Brevin Jordan also had 2 targets, caught 1 of them for 9 yards. Now, as far as the snaps go, it's also not something you're going to want to hear if you're Dalton Schultz. 48% of the snaps for Schultz, 43% of the snaps for Brevin Jordan. And also, 25% of snaps for a tight end fullback hybrid named Andrew Beck.
Yeah.
You just don't like to see it. Oh, and another 18% for one Eric Saubert. This isn't what we wanted. But if the cost of the tight end room depleting in Houston is what we're paying for Nico Collins and Tank Dell to go off, I'll take that every day of the week.
Yeah.
Nico Collins caught 7 of his 9 targets for 104 yards and a touchdown, giving him 23.4 fantasy points. Absolutely great day for him. He played 77% of the snaps. Tank Dell caught 5 of his 8 targets for 50 yards and a touchdown, giving him 17.2. Played 80% of the snaps. And that's kind of where I want to draw the line. Robert Woods had involvement in this one, caught 2 of his 3 passes for 40 yards. Only played 58% of the snaps. Noah Brown did not play again, so he's not a guy that I'm looking at. I'd imagine when Noah Brown gets back, he will eat into the work of Robert Woods.
Yeah.
And I just don't see Nico Collins and Tank Dell losing involvement. So Robert Woods can keep involvement.
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening. Oh, Jonathan Taylor to undergo thumb surgery could return in 2 to 3 weeks.
Zach Moss time.
Zach Moss season through the playoffs. Wow, that is huge.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very possibly.
Okay. So, yeah, that'll be it for the morning games, though.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, I did ask Derek how he felt about Matt Amendola.
Dude. They cut
Both
him.
of his field goal
They cut him
attempts.
too. He's done.
Oh. Well, there you go. Is
Timing
Fairbairn
Fairbairn.
probably back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, they were praying for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that'll be all for this one. We will be back after a little break with all the afternoon games and the Sunday and Monday night game. So stay tuned.
Yes, sir.